All right, we're live. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. This is Faraz Siddiqui. I'm here with Zach Rizzuto. We're going to go over the Thursday night game. I'm sorry. Yes, it was Thursday, right? Yes, Thursday night game.
Yeah.
We're going to review that and all the fantasy implications coming out of that. We are going to review some injuries going into Friday practice. And we'll kind of let you know our thoughts on guys that might miss this week or guys who we still have to kind of pay attention to their practice status on Friday. And then we're going to go over our wide receiver rankings and our tight end rankings. And we're going to try to fit all that in an hour. And I'm going to do my best to do that.
Let's do it.
First of all, appreciate you guys joining. And Zach, it was an interesting game yesterday, right? The over under I think was set at like 52 or something like that.
Mhm.
It didn't quite, it wasn't quite the type of shootout that a lot of us thought might happen. But it was a solid game there, especially the what seemed like some heroics right at the end of the game by Justin Herbert.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would have been more of a shootout had Herbert not thrown that pick. I think it would
That
have
was
gone.
a big one, man.
I think it would have so say Justin Herbert throws a touchdown there instead of a pick. I think the offenses would have gone nuclear at that point. I think we would have seen both teams over 30 points. But it didn't happen ultimately. So we can cry about it. But 27-24, it's not bad. That wasn't bad. It could have been.
It wasn't bad. It's like the final score ended up not being bad, right? Like it ended up almost hitting that. But there were a few highlights from yesterday's game. Mike Williams, he did what we hoped he would do, right? In the absence of Keenan Allen. That was good to see. And let's just hit the elephant in the room, man. Austin Eckler, right?
Yeah.
Throughout the game, you see Eckler come off the field for Sony Michel and Josh Kelly, right? But Eckler ended up coming through for you in fantasy, especially if you're in a full PPR league, on their last drive, basically. It was like a 2-minute type of situation with like 10 or 11 PPR points. You just in that, few plays, a span of few plays that basically saved your day when it came to Austin Eckler. And he probably will end up as a RB1, PPR RB1 this week because of that. However, it didn't seem like it, right? He still ended up with about 63% of the snaps. He still led the team in targets with a 25% target share, thanks to that last drive. And he still ended up with 24 opportunities, which, you could look at and you're like, oh, wow, I should be happy with that. But you were worried, right? And I think you should be. But I want to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Okay, so you say about the 24 opportunities, that's not even close to what it really was. That last drive, like you said, scored most of his points. And even then, I don't anticipate the Chargers being in many situations where it's just going to be dumping off Dawson Eckler at the end of the game. Like maybe against the Chiefs, the Chiefs are a good team. But other than that, the Chargers are going to be either leading or in a very close game to the point where it's not going to be just, move the ball down the field as quick as you can and try to score that way. The thing that bothered me the most with Austin Eckler was he didn't have the goal line rule again, which was kind of upsetting. Not kind of upsetting, very upsetting. And I just said about that right before we got on the live that, it doesn't look like he's in line for the workload that he had last season, which doesn't really make sense to me because, we saw what he did with that workload last season. He scored 20 touchdowns.
You can Speaking of that goal line roll real quick, just want to piggyback off what you're saying. Michelle ended up with 2 of the 3 goal line snaps in yesterday's game.
Yeah. And Xander Horvath, is that his name? Yeah.
I have no idea what that dude's name is.
What is he doing catching a touchdown pass from Justin Herbert 2 weeks in a row? Like
2 weeks in a row.
That's Eckler's work right there. And good for him. Good for Xander Horvath. They said he's like the first.
Zach's like super happy for you. Super happy
for you. But what are you screwing Austin Eckler out of snaps for? No, it's just I wasn't very happy with Austin Eckler's performance. I don't have many shares of him. I have him in one league. So I was all right, I guess. I wasn't feeling the hurt. But if I'm an Austin Eckler owner and I have more shares of him than I do, I'm upset because even though he did come through with 18 points, like it was a very narrow escape from what would have been just like another disappointment of a week. And for the price that you drafted him at, that's just like not
exactly
good.
And that's the pain that you might be feeling, right? Because of where you drafted him. And if you drafted his ass over Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp, you're feeling like shit today. Right. And there are 2 things that sucked for Eckler, right? One is that Sony Michel ended up with 2 of the 3 goal line snaps. The other thing that sucked was Josh Kelly for whatever reason, was on the field on 4 of their 5. I think it was they had 5 passing down snaps on third down, and Josh Kelly was on the field for 4 of them.
Yeah.
And he was on the field for, Austin Eckler was the primary 2-minute back, but there were 9 total 2-minute snaps, and Josh Kelly had 3 of them. Like, that should be all Austin Eckler right there, So, I'm obviously starting him moving forward, but like you said, like, his usage overall needs to be better for you to get a return on what you paid in drafts. Like, I think him getting 24 opportunities, saved your day in this game. But you really need his volume to go up, and him not being in a timeshare like this, and he needs like goal line work. That's the main thing. Obviously, a lot of people were, and it makes sense to peg him for regression because he scored 20 touchdowns last year. But if he wasn't going to if he was going to maintain his goal line role, you're not really worried about that because he's going to have that role in a great offense. But if Sony Michel is going to be vulturing a lot of that, or even becoming the primary guy, that's not great. That's not great.
And
all right,
just one more thing, you can't rely on 10 targets, and like 6 or 7 of which come at the end of the game the rest of the season. That's like Chase Edmonds type stuff. And it's funny because Chase Edmonds was supposed to be competing with Sony Michel, not Austin Eckler, but here we are. So I'm just looking at it that way. I'm like, it's
such a good point. Actually,
it's infuriating.
It is, because like, the Dolphins were basically like, nah, we're good. We have Chase Edmonds. We're good. Bye, Sony. And now the Chargers pick him up, and they're just taking snaps away from Austin Eckler.
Eckler has a Chase Edmonds role. It's like, what the heck?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But Josh Palmer, let's move on from Austin Eckler. It's making me upset. Josh Palmer, he ran the most routes of any of these wide receivers. He had 8 targets in this game. He ended up with only 4 catches. It could have been a much bigger day. Like, the touchdown did save his fantasy value, just like Austin Eckler. At the end of the game, the touchdown saved his fantasy value at the end. But I think he's a hold for now. Like, if you have him on your roster, and you like kind of like you need wide receivers to potentially start, next week. Keenan Allen, he might not be back next week, right? Because, he has that hamstring injury. Who knows how long he'll be out for. It's possible that he does miss another week. So, just in case you need a wide receiver to play next week, I would hold him as like a wide receiver 3 or a low-end wide receiver 3. That's kind of what I label him as. He could have had a much bigger day. It just didn't really come to fruition. Gerald Everett, he had 10 targets in this game, had a very solid day, 6 for 71. Him too, a lot of his stuff was saved at the end of the game. His underlying usage, it wasn't great. He ran a route on only 66% of dropbacks. He only needs a few more routes to kind of get to that 75-80% threshold. But for me personally, after this game and after the good game that he had in week 1, the touchdown that he had in week 1, I think I liked Everett coming into the season as one of those guys who you can potentially stream, and maybe he has some upside, but I think I'm going to be using him as some trade bait after this game to a team who either A, needs a tight end, right, and is struggling with like Cole Kmet and these guys, or if you add him to a package to trade up at tight end, right? So you have Gerald Everett plus some wide receiver 3 who's sitting on your bench, to a team who needs wide receivers to upgrade to like a Dallas Goedert. Right. Or even upgrade to like I think even I'd rather have like Zach Ertz over him. Even like a slight upgrade in terms of a guy that you can start every single week. I don't think Everett's there just yet. So a guy that I know I can start every single week, a guy like Zach Ertz is practicing in full now, he should be good. Something like that, right? And kind of trade up just to kind of use him and use what his value looks like right now, because I think his production, I think he's overproducing based on the type of usage that he's getting.
Yeah, I think that his solid performance last night could kind of be attributed to Keenan Allen being out, but as long as the Keenan Allen's out, and he might not be back next week, we'll have to see. I think that I could happily rely on Gerald Everett, especially if I just picked him up, as a streamer at the back of the draft, or even just through free agency. I'd be happy relying on him, because that would mean that maybe you don't have any other tight ends on your roster. If the other guys aren't really budging, that have Zach Ertz, that have the Dallas Goederts, if they're not budging in a trade, you're going to be able to get by just fine, I think, with Gerald Everett.
I'm with you.
Yeah, but you're right. Take advantage maybe and see what you can get. I think that if you can move up, that's good. But if not, you're not screwed either, because Gerald Everett,
I don't think so.
He's on a good offense with a good quarterback.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And like another concern that I have is Donald Parham coming back as well. He didn't play in these 2 games, and maybe he cuts into it a little bit. However, for now, if you can't trade up and Gerald Everett's your best bet right now, you're okay.
Yeah.
Like Zach saying. So similar thing with CEH here. Okay, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. My man got open in the he got in the open field. Did you see that play? He got in the
Yeah.
open field acting like he's never been there before. Like I never seen anything like it. He's just like he got into the open field. He's like, oh my god, I better not fumble this ball. Like it was so funny to watch. I'm like, dude, like when was the last time we saw him in the open field? And even he was surprised himself.
Yeah.
He's like, wait, what? There's no guys around me.
He had that. Are you talking about that play where he trucked? Was it Derwin James that he trucked? I saw like he went. He put somebody down on the ground.
Was that on that long run?
It was on a catch. I think it was.
Oh, it was on a catch. Okay, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm talking about the run that he had.
Okay, yeah.
It was like towards the end of the game. They were kind of like trying to run the clock out. I saw that. I know what you're talking about, but I think I'm talking about that run that he had, like kind of up the middle. He broke a tackle.
Oh,
and
right,
he just like ran up the sideline basically.
And like think for a second.
Like, yeah, and it's like wow. Like I was surprised that like nobody caught him until they did because he didn't look too fast, but it was fun. Anyway, it's enough. I mean, I don't want to shit on CH all podcast long, but listen, like he's no slouch here, man. He had 118 total yards, right? But he only ran the ball 8 times. He caught the ball 4 times. He split snaps with McKinnon 50-50. McKinnon getting snaps at the goal line.
And touchdowns.
I am not, and touchdowns, right? I'm not buying this type of production. Like the same way that Clyde Edwards-Helaire scored, in week 1 on that catch, like McKinnon did the same thing in this game. So they're used interchangeably, right? Yeah. I'm not buying that this production continues, this type of production, like 2 touchdown game in week 1, 100 scrimmage yard game in week 2. I think the fantasy gods, they have allowed you, if you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, allowed you to sell him like he's a sustainable, high-end RB2 or solid RB2. I just think that the type of volume that he's getting is going to be completely random. It just so happens that his good games ended up happening in the first 2 games of the season. So for me, if you can sell and get somebody who's like more reliable, right, or package him up with somebody to upgrade that running back, I think I would try to do that. Listen, and if you like, and it always comes back to what Zach said before. If you can't do it, whatever, you make your set decisions with CEH as one of those options. But ideally, what you want to try to continually to do is take advantage of players when their points are over what their expected points are, pretty much.
So, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we talked about he just wasn't looking good the first few years of his career. And we know that's what he was for a while, and he did that pretty consistently. But now he's suddenly like this hyper efficient, hyper productive running back, even with like the volume that he's getting. He had 12 opportunities? Is that what it was? He caught 4 passes. Like, it was good. It was good performance for what he got. But like I said, you can't really rely on that week to week. I think that you're absolutely right, hitting the nail on the head. Sell Clyde Edwards-Helaire high, and then maybe. I don't know. Maybe you could go get somebody that's pretty high pedigree at the running back position. I don't know how much people are going to be buying into it. It seems like the general consensus around CEH is still that he's not. This is kind of a facade here. But if you benefited from his production the first 2 weeks, good for you.
Here's a question right here. Josh is asking, who would you rather have, CEH or AJ Dillon?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go AJ Dillon.
I think I'm gonna go AJ Dillon too.
See, and here's the thing, right? Like, I think AJ Dillon is likely going to have. So I think AJ Dillon had 20 fantasy points, PPR fantasy points in week 1. I think it was
20 on the dot. Yeah.
And then we'll see what he does week 2. But it's possible that CEH after 2 weeks can have equal or more fantasy points than AJ Dillon through 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at if Aaron Jones outscores AJ Dillon heavily this week, which could definitely happen. Like we've seen that a lot last year. If that happens, then hey, like you have an in here, right, to potentially do a 1-for-1 swap, and this could definitely work out. So, and I would do that. I would rather have AJ Dillon because there is no world where CEH becomes a bell cow, right, on that offense, right? They're going to find somebody else to plug in no matter what.
Right.
Opposed to AJ Dillon, he is at his floor right now, right? And if Aaron Jones were to ever get hurt, you got a RB1 right there every single week, on that offense. So So yeah, I'd rather have AJ Dillon. So that's a good question, Josh. I appreciate you giving us some context there, allowing us to give people context there.
Right.
So just real quick, the last thing I want to talk about with this game is Juju Smith-Schuster. Terrible night from him. It was a little bit of a tough matchup. J.C. Jackson, Bryce Callahan in the slot, but not great. Like Juju is playing both in the slot and on the outside now. All three of his targets were against J.C. Jackson and Bryce Callahan. So a little bit of a tough matchup. He had a good week in week 1 in a non-competitive game. So I'm not hitting the panic button or anything like that on Juju. It was a terrible week. You hate to start your week 2 like this with Juju in the lineup. I did, but I'm hoping that he can bounce back next week.
Yeah, with Juju, you'd say he had a tough matchup against J.C. Jackson, but so did Justin Watson. And Justin Watson came in relief.
Yep.
He came in relief of who was it? He came
Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, Mecole Hardman, and he just first play burns J.C. Jackson touchdown.
Burns him, dude. Burns him. And not only does he burn him, he puts him in like a spin cycle.
Yeah,
he just makes him turn around and it was bad. J.C. Jackson did not look good in that play.
Yeah, you can chalk it up to J.C. Jackson being in coverage on Juju for a while, but I'm also looking at this game. And, we knew that targets would kind of be like here and there for these receivers. This was actually an off fantasy night for the entire Chiefs offense. If you look at it, like the highest scorer, Patrick Mahomes, yes, he did have 2 touchdowns, but it just wasn't, hyper productive in any position. It's not like Travis Kelce was, dominating target share or Justin Watson was dominating target share. It's like everybody had a few targets. Everybody had a few catches, like, Jerick McKinnon and Justin Watson, 2 guys that you don't really hear about, just happened to get the touchdowns this week. I'm not panicking on Juju Smith-Schuster, but it was definitely, kind of a dud to open the week. And that's never how you want to open the week. But better weeks are ahead. It'll come around. It'll be Juju's time. One of these weeks, it'll happen. We just got to wait for it.
I think so. So a few practice updates before we get into the rankings. Zach Ertz, full practice for him on Thursday. And, during this podcast, we might see some practice reports come in. So if you guys see any practice reports come in, just put them in if you're here in the live. Please. If you're in the live, by the way, and you hear you see some practice reports, throw it in the chat so we can see it. I'll have that chat open to kind of take a look. But Zach Ertz had a full practice for him on Thursday. Expect him to play. Expect him to get a full complement of routes this week. He didn't have that last week, but he also was limited, and we kind of knew that he was going to be on a little bit of a snap count. Rondale Moore most likely out again this week as he's yet to practice. So Ertz can be in line for a big game unless Kyler just wants to continue to target Greg Dortch the entire time. Steve Kaufman is saying that T. Higgins practiced. I want to, do you know if he practiced in full or still limited? If he's still limited, we got to kind of just make sure that, he's kind of through the protocol or not, but I'm sure we'll get some more news on that. Let's see. J.K. Dobbins, he practiced in full 2 days in a row. So it looks like he's going to play this week and make a season debut after tearing his ACL last year before the season started. I think I'd play him as like a touchdown dependent flex option this week in his first game back. I don't want to like force him into my lineup right now. And I don't think you drafted him to do that. But, if you need him, throw him in your flex. I'm cool with it.
Yeah. James Robinson showed us that you can produce after a big injury. So
we'll see. Yeah, James Robinson was the only person ever to show that you can produce after a torn Achilles. So.
It is possible. It is possible.
So you're saying there's a chance? Michael Pittman, he didn't practice on Thursday with a quad injury. So have a backup ready in case he can't go. I think what I'll do is after this episode's over, we'll be done in about 40 minutes or so. I'll look and see if there's any updates to the practice report, and I'll just give an update at the end of this. But also I'll be updating throughout the weekend and today too on my Instagram stories at Upper Hand Fantasy. You should just keep that in mind. Anyway, back to Michael Pittman. Monitor his practice status on today. If he doesn't play, I think Alec Pierce is also in the concussion protocol. He started the concussion protocol pretty late, not right in the game, so he might be out this week. So the guys that would benefit were Paris Campbell, Ashton Dulin. We might even see Naheem Hines used more as well. So just keep that in mind if Michael Pittman and you need some desperate starts. George Kittle still not practicing as of Thursday. I don't expect him to play, but monitor his practice on today. Like, it's weird because with him, there's been many times where like he doesn't practice at all, and then like all of a sudden it's like, all right, he's active. He's active on Sunday. So just monitor that. If he plays, then like who are you playing over George Kittle?
Right.
DeAndre Swift, he didn't practice on Thursday, but there is still some optimism that he plays this week. Hopefully, he gets a practice in, at least a limited in today. According to him, though, they're
Not
not
a big
worried
deal, he
about.
said. Yeah.
They're not worried about him missing this game. Najee Harris is practicing in full. That gives you some sort of confidence to be able to play him this week. I still have him as an RB2, so he'll likely be in lineups. We talked about this on Wednesday in Wednesday's podcast at length. I am worried about him. He might not get a full workload, and we don't know what the injury is. They're claiming that it was not the Liz Frank injury that he messed up again. So we just don't know what they were checking for, right?
Yeah.
Some are claiming that the type of mechanism that it looked like on camera on video was high ankle sprain, but if he's practicing in full, it probably isn't that. So we'll see. Hopefully he'll be back and we don't have to worry about it too much. But I am a little bit cautious on Najee Harris this week. We got Alvin Kamara too. He didn't practice on Thursday. Mark Ingram is banged up as well, so I'm not sure I'd be digging past these guys for a play against the Bucks. Even Ingram would be a risky flex option for me. He fumbled last week, didn't look great, and it's a tough defense, a Russian defense. So and he's banged up. I'm not sure if I'm really confident in plugging in Ingram if Kamara does miss. What do you think about that?
I don't have anything wrong going with Kamara. I'm just looking at I was looking through the comments and it looks like Herbert. Somebody put in that Herbert's X-ray came back negative on his rib.
Good.
I don't know if you saw about that, but I was definitely kind of sweating that one a little bit, and that's good news to hear because he was actually wincing. If you saw him last night, I was going to bring that.
Oh
up
yeah! Oh my goodness, he was in pain. And the fact that he threw that pass. Who was it? Was it DeAndre Carter that they caught that ball on the 3-yard line or whatever it was?
Yeah, I think it was
right, dude.
Yeah.
The play right before that, he was wincing and couldn't even throw the ball 5 yards to get it out of bounds on a throwaway. Right. And just the next play, he throws it 35, 40 yards 35 yards down
on
the
a
field.
rope. On a rope too.
On a rope to DeAndre Carter, and they could have been a touchdown. So that would have been amazing. Thank God he didn't, because Josh Palmer got a touchdown. So
sorry, I pulled away from your question. Remind me what that was again, because I
was just saying that with Kamara not practicing, right? And if Ingram is good to go, let's say he plays because he's banged up too. How confident would you be in putting in Ingram if Kamara misses?
I wouldn't feel too confident. We saw him play last week. He's getting old. He's been around the league.
He's old.
He's been in the Saints. He's been around the league, and now he's back to the Saints. I think that the receivers, if the Saints have to lean on the receivers, they will. They're not afraid to. If they have to pull away from the running backs, they will. And that could spell just a poor outing for the running backs. I don't think the offense is going to be hurt by it. Jameis Winston, he's a gunslinger. And he has good weapons. He has Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, and Michael Thomas. There's no reason to think that they won't lean on them fully if they need to. They can and they will.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So with T. Higgins, he got in a few limited practices in this week, including today. So, we have to monitor him and to see if he gets cleared from the concussion protocol. He hasn't gotten cleared yet, but when he does, and if he does, plug him in your lineup. No issues there. Let's see, anybody else? These Bucks wide receivers, so we just talking about that game. They're all banged up, dude. It seems like Russell Gage out of all of them is the most healthy of the group. But none of Julio, Chris Godwin, obviously he'll be out for a couple of weeks, or Mike Evans practice on Thursday. So monitor their practice status this week. I'll update you guys about all these guys on Instagram as well. But yeah, that's all. Let's get right into these wide receiver rankings first, and then we'll hit tight end. So I'm going to go ahead and share that real quick. If we had a producer for this podcast, things will be a lot easier. So if you guys want to, somebody out there,
audition,
wants to do something, help us out a little bit, send me an email. But yeah, so we got Justin Jefferson at number 1 here. No surprise. But some people were surprised that I had Justin Jefferson number 1 all offseason long. And I think we now understand why that was the case. And he's basically playing the Cooper Kupp role and is just a better player than Cooper Kupp. So that's why we had it like that. And that's why you saw what he did last week against the Packers. Only 1 game, but I love what I'm seeing from him. He's playing all over the field. and he's absolutely killing it. So I'm loving what I'm seeing there. You got Cooper Kupp at number 2, Devontae Adams at number 3. This was one thing I was not expecting. Nothing changed here coming to Vegas. He brought his massive target share with him. 44% target share last week, dude.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That's solely because of Derek Carr. Or excuse me, Sidecar. Yeah, that's what I'm calling him now. But but I kind of saw it coming. I'm not saying that I was super high on Devontae Adams, but as the offseason wore on, I kind of warmed up to the idea that maybe this former college connection that they had would come out in the NFL. I'm not saying it's the college connection that they had, but the target share was definitely there. It looked college-esque, just the hyper targeting. It didn't matter what play it was or who the play was designed to. Derek Carr would, even if Devontae Adams was supposed to be the third read, he was the first read for Derek Carr. So I was very happy with that, and I'm very confident now with Devontae Adams because he's just going to keep getting those targets as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, man, for sure. We got Stephon Diggs at number 4, Jamar Chase at number 5. I might put Jamar Chase over Stephon Diggs if T. Higgins does end up missing this game. So just keep that in mind. But what did I have here? So I have AJ Brown at number 6 after Jamar Chase, Michael Pittman at 7. Hopefully he plays. Mike Evans at 8. Hopefully he plays. And then you got Tyreek Hill at 9 and Marquise Brown at number 10. Now AJ Brown, he's all the way up at number 6. He demanded close to a 40% target share last week. I'm expecting that to continue. Not 40%, but he could get close to 30%, on a weekly basis because he's that type of dude. Tyreek Hill also demanded that target share with 39% of the targets himself, with Jalen Waddle a distant second. So we'll see if that continues. But I'm ranking Tyreek Hill now, assuming that it does.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson, 1 and 6. That has the potential to be just a humongous game fantasy wise. These guys could be league winners, not league winners, but week winners. This week, and they're playing
just like last week.
they're playing the late game, right? Is it? Are they Monday night or are they Sunday night? I think they're Monday night. I think
Sunday. Oh, are they? Oh, that'll be nice. I haven't even seen the schedule.
Let me check. I think they're a Monday night game, which means you could be winning or losing your week because of these two guys. Just a warning, so you're not surprised when that happens. But this is gonna be a humongous offensive matchup. Vikings, Eagles, very good matchup. Potential to put up points like we thought Chargers and Chiefs would last night. Not that they disappointed, but it just wasn't as high scoring. I'm looking at them too as potential to finish, wide receiver 1 and 2 overall.
100%, man. AJ Brown did his thing, and Steve in the chat here is saying that imagine when AJ Brown actually scores with that type of volume.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely right about that.
They are the 8:30 game. They're the last game of the week. So
on Monday?
Yep, Monday night.
Oh,
there's actually 2 games Monday night. It's a doubleheader.
Is it really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
There's one at 7:15. That's the Bills and the Titans, and then 8:30.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. So wait. So which game is starting later?
The Eagles game. Eagles.
What time is that starting?
8:30.
8:30. Oh, they're playing it in parallel. So you kind of have to choose which game to watch.
Yeah, kind of. Maybe they'll put Red Zone on.
Yo, that's what I was just gonna say. Red Zone for 2 games. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I had Marquise Brown at number 10. I didn't necessarily want to rank Marquise Brown in the premier, top 10 after last week. But when you look at the wide receivers after him, you kind of get why. Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown might be able to take the spot over him, and maybe he should, to be honest with you. But I still expect him to bounce back with a high target share. It was just a terrible offensive outing for them in week 1. He ran around on 95% of dropbacks, 6 targets. Only Greg Dortch, of all people, had more than him. I don't expect that to continue like as heavily as it was. I think Dortch will still be involved in running a ton of routes while Rondale Moore's out. But what's really annoying about this offense, and I tweeted about this yesterday, Cliff Kingsbury's a fraud, dude. Like, he's a fraud. Like, in this day and age, if you're not moving around your star wide receivers, you're doing it wrong. No other coach does this, right? Especially the good ones. DeAndre Hopkins, he runs every single route from the left perimeter. Not every single one, but like 80, 85%, 90% of his routes from the left perimeter. He could have like 30% more production in this offense with Kyler Murray if he simply just moved around, and made defenses, work harder to cover him, right? But no, he doesn't do that. Same thing with Hollywood. That's what he did. He left them on the left side 80% of his routes. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? Like, no other offense does this with their star wide receivers. Like, it's super frustrating.
Yeah. No,
And
I
they're
agree.
simply just leaving production on the table and making it harder for their own offense and making it super easy for defenses to game plan against them.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think we were kind of hoping that the connection between Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown would kind of show up, in this game, the last game. But obviously, like we said, it was a horrible offensive outing. I do think this is a much better matchup, for the Cardinals this week. It's a much more winnable
Yeah.
matchup. Not that the Chiefs game wasn't winnable, but you knew early on that wasn't going to go the Cardinals' way. This one has a much better chance to stay in hand, be a competitive game, and Marquise Brown should be doing much better this week. Even though he had 6 targets, you said last week. That's middle of the pack. It's not what you're hoping to
Yeah.
see,
It,
especially
it
given the
was still like a
situation.
20% target share, right? So it
Yeah,
wasn't terrible. But you were
but
hoping that would be around 25%.
you're hoping it would be a lot more for me
Yeah.
personally because you're missing DeAndre Hopkins, you're missing
Yes.
Rondell Moore, and Zach Ertz was, coming off the injury. Even though he was healthy and playing, he might have taken a little bit of time to get back into it. But yeah, I was disappointed with his usage last week. It should go up this week. If it doesn't go up this week, I'd start worrying a little bit.
Yeah, and then you're like, all right, well, I guess we need Hopkins back, right?
Yeah,
And it's not because of Hollywood Brown; it's because of scheming. Like I would literally put it to that because we know what type of player Hollywood Brown is.
yeah,
And it would be a disgrace not to use him properly because he's a baller. He's a legit number one. He could be a number one wide receiver despite his size.
hmm
All right, T. Higgins at 11. I'm hoping he can get through the concussion protocol and play. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 12. And this one might be like, what? But listen, like the dude answered the question that we were all asking this offseason, right? Like, can you maintain your dominance when guys like TJ Hawkinson is back? DeAndre Swift is back. And even you added a guy like DJ Shark, who got 8 targets himself last week. The
right,
answer was, yep. You know what I'm saying? Like he did
yeah,
his thing. Again, 32% target share, 12 targets, 5 consecutive games of 8 catches or more, and a touchdown. And that's tied for an NFL record. He also has 7 straight games of 8 catches or more. And only 5 players in NFL history has done that. And props to Mike Clay on that one. Got that from his tweet. But
yeah,
he has 7 straight games of 30% target share. So the dude is a baller. He's now certified. You can put the stamp on Amon-Ra St. Brown as being certified baller,
yeah.
and he's my wide receiver 12 this week. And I'm thinking about putting him at 10 over Higgins and over Marquise Brown.
I think that's fair, especially given the matchup that they have. Another NFC East opponent that was high scoring last week with a defense that gave up some points. I think that I'm on St. Brown. The question for me wasn't that whether, could Amon St. Brown do that with TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift on the field? Was it going to carry over from last season? Was this Rashad Penny had a great end of the season and he didn't look fantastic. The beginning of this season. Obviously different circumstances, we go from season to season, but Amon St. Brown picked up right where he left off, just like Devontae Adams did, just like Justin Jefferson did. And that's promising because that shows consistency and reliability each week. And now you have him, you can rank him actually as a low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. As long as, things are a negative game script in Detroit, which it should be for,
Yeah,
a good part of the season.
it's a good overall lesson, I think, with Amon-Ra because it's like, when guys are maintaining like a 30% target share over like that type of sample size, and it might seem small, but the fact that he was able to produce on that, he's playing the same role as he was last year. When that happens, most receivers don't take advantage of those type of opportunities when guys like TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift are out.
Yeah.
Most guys just like do almost the same thing they were doing before, maybe a little bit of extra production, but the stuff that he was doing was on a different level. And when you command that type of target share, you're usually that type of player. And that's why we were making the type of bets that we were. That's why we were relatively high on him, coming into this season, because of that fact, right?
Yeah.
So, we shouldn't have been worried that much about Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if you got him where you got him, you got yourself a damn steal.
Definitely. And then
I
that
have
brings
CeeDee
us
Lamb.
to CeeDee
Go ahead.
Lamb. Yeah. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
CeeDee Lamb,
who would
your
have thought?
boy. I do have him at 13, and this I think might be a little surprising. It might be too high for some people, but we spoke about this yesterday, and I think we might be overreacting. And you mentioned that too, that we might be overreacting a little bit with CeeDee Lamb, right? So, last week I think I had him at like wide receiver 5 or
He was
wide receiver
5.
6,
Yeah,
wide
he was
receiver
5.
5, right? So, he does get a downgrade, but I still think he gets like a massive target share. And I think Cooper Rush, he was able to get Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb to have big days when he had his start last year. So, I don't want to overdo it with CeeDee. I think he'll still be in my lineup for sure.
I think so. And the whole Cowboys offense was out of sorts. If the Cowboys just even find their feet on offense, if they score 2 touchdowns, CeeDee Lamb should easily account for one of them. The whole offense, like I said, the offense was completely out of whack. If they just find their feet and get some sort of production, CeeDee Lamb's gonna have a much better week than he did last week. 2 catches on 11 targets for what was it, 19 yards? It's just a disgusting performance. Not something you want to see, but I think that if things get even just slightly better, CeeDee Lamb will be all right. I think that 13 is a good spot to have him ranked because his upside is now capped. Unless
I think you missed my product placement here. I think you missed it, Zach.
Very nice.
You were looking at the screen there.
I was not looking at the screen there. Yeah. Very nice.
And but it's funny because I just realized something. Like if I'm going to do product placement,
you should have the handle.
And I'm drinking like this.
Yeah.
I should probably have it on this side.
Well, hold it lefty.
That's super awkward. Like I can't do anything. And also the mic is in the way too. Like I can't
That's true. Yeah. And then you're not sure if you're gonna even get the sip in your mouth. It's just
That's true. Did you see me yesterday?
I didn't see that.
I was hoping Scott, who edits the videos, I was hoping that he would catch it. But he didn't. He did catch it one time before. But I for some reason, when I'm looking at the camera, I can't drink anything. So, but anyway, I'm sorry, man. You were talking about something about fantasy football, I think.
Yeah, something like that. But no, I got a plain white background. I got no mugs or anything. Nothing that he can get me with. So far, I'm clear. He's not getting me for anything yet.
Yeah, man. So
this might be too easy to green screen.
It's true. Well, it's not green, so if it was green, then it would. Yeah, you'd be in trouble for sure. Sorry for everyone who's listening. Like whoever's listening and not watching on YouTube, they have no idea what's going on right now. But it's all good though.
We got a comment. Merch is fire. Someone comments. Merch is fire.
Merch
that's
is
what we're
fire.
talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Merch is fire. Shop.upperhandfantasy.com. Go check it out. All right. Anyway, Brandon Cooks, I have him at number 14. Michael Thomas has 15. After showing that he's healthy, I moved him up a lot, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But he ran a full complement of routes. He scored those touchdowns. And as you mentioned last week, showing that he and Jameis Winston might have a little bit of rapport. Definitely. And have some trust, based on those back shoulder throws that you brought up that he made in the end zone.
Yeah, definitely. I like Mike Thomas a lot more. You said you moved him up a lot. You had him, I think, as a fringe wide receiver too, outside. He was like 26, was it? And now he's up. He's a fringe wide receiver 1, solid wide receiver 2 play.
Yeah,
and I think we're still, he has a potential to still be on the climb. To where he's going to settle as far as his production. I think that. If you drafted Michael Thomas, things are looking good as long as he stays healthy. I think you got yourself a steal. And Brandon Cooks, I was a big Brandon Cooks guy this offseason, and so far so good. He's doing exactly what I expected. Just putting in a solid outing. If he does it again, awesome. I'm expecting that. I think the Texans offense is going to start to gel more and be even more conducive to production for him. If Brandon Cooks could grab one of those touchdowns that OJ Howard got for some reason, I think he's going to be in really good shape. 14 is good. He's got a good matchup. You figure the Texans will be in a negative game script. We also said that about the Seahawks, so we'll see against Denver. But Brandon Cooks, solid play every week as long as he's healthy.
Yes, sir. After that, I have Debo at 16. I had Juju at 17. That one didn't work out.
It's like an Allen Robinson situation. You know what I'm saying?
It was, man. It seriously, dude. The Allen Robinson situation came to fruition. But where I had Juju ranked in week 1, I mean, I think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
But in week 2, I did move him up a little bit because I had some confidence in this game as potential shootout. Didn't work out. And I had Michael Williams at 18. Imagine someone looked at my rankings and they were like, hey, who should I start between Juju and Mike Williams? Oh boy, oof. And I guess I can start to defend myself here, but I'm not going to because it would just sound dumb the entire time. So yeah, I hope you didn't.
Hindsight is 20/20, people.
Yeah, it is. In this case, it's even clearer than that.
Yeah.
I have Courtland Sutton at number 19. I have Julio at 20. I'm hoping that Julio can suit up and play because with Godwin out. For sure, if Julio can play, I think he'll be a solid wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. But you might be wondering why I have Sutton above Judy. when it was Judy who had the bigger game. Both of them had 7 targets last week, but it was Sutton who had the higher weighted opportunity. His target share combined with his air yard share of 44%. And by the way, that air yard share was 8th highest among all wide receivers last week, compared to Judy's 26%. That's why I lean Sutton. Judy got the touchdown last week on that opportunity. That was great. We're all hoping that continues. But if I'm going to play one over the other, it'll be Sutton. Also, he has the better matchup this week against the rookie Derek Stingley. He's still a rookie. Okay. Steven Nelson on the outside compared to Judy, who has to go up against Desmond King. So a little bit of a tougher matchup for Judy.
Right. Stingley isn't a chump. I don't think that, he's a rookie. I don't think that he's going to be like, someone that's going to be exploited like some guys like Trayvon Diggs. But, Julio Jones, I kind of think Julio Jones is a little bit high on this ranking. I'm not sure. I mean, I'd ask you to elaborate more. I feel like Julio Jones, he was looking kind of like a gadget player besides that one deep pass. They actually handed him the ball a couple times. It was weird. It was a weird usage that I haven't seen Julio Jones do, and I feel like it was weird enough that having him ranked at 20 is a little bit generous, I feel like, especially when you have guys like Jalen Waddle behind him, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore. But
yeah, I mean, Julio was a full-time player. I mean, he only ran one less route than Mike Evans last week. He had 19% target share. And the only person who had more target share than him was Mike Evans. So, he was in a situation where he was getting his targets, he was getting his opportunities, and he was being targeted down the field. So yeah. And if Chris Godwin is out, Chris Godwin himself, had 3 targets. So, he's going to have to rely on Mike Evans and Julio Jones. So because of that, with Tom Brady at the helm, who can potentially have, 2, 3, but 4 guys, fantasy relevant in the same game in terms of receiving, I think Julio Jones kind of gets up there because of that opportunity. And you know what? Julio Jones didn't look bad in that game. He was getting banged up every single time he caught the ball. But at the same time, the fact that he was able to separate deep, catch that ball from Tom's looking for him. That's pretty much why I would start him, as a wide receiver too. If Godwin misses, I mean, we know that Godwin's missing, and if Julio Jones is healthy, we'll see how healthy he is, if he practices today or not. But yeah, no, I think he's going to get a ton of opportunity without Godwin there.
Right, that's fair. That's my thing. We've seen Julio Jones banged up so many times, and hearing that he's showing up on injury report, that kind of thing, or not practicing is it's just a little unnerving. He's not young. He's not a young buck. He's a seasoned vet. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. No. I hear your concern there. I think that's a very valid concern, honestly, because he's not someone that we could depend on, over the last couple of seasons. So you might not be able to depend on him like all year long, but I think in the short term, while Godwin is out, I think Julio is definitely. I think he should be in lineups.
Yeah.
And especially it's like I think of how Brady used guys like Gronk, right, near the end zone. I think Julio is going to be that guy for Brady, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has like a 2 touchdown game, in without guys like Godwin, without guys like Gronk, in the lineup, especially when it's probably going to be. I'm assuming this week it's going to be Gage, Julio, and Mike Evans. We don't even know if Mike Evans is going to play because he hasn't practiced yet either.
Yeah.
But I'm going to check that practice report on the Bucs as soon as. Usually those practice reports on the Bucs, because since they're on the East Coast, they come out pretty soon. So hopefully we should have that shortly.
Yeah, no. Julio, I feel like his range of outcomes is like, 2 catches and 8 catches and a touchdown. The ceiling floor is just like so high and so low.
Yeah.
He's boom bust.
For sure. I agree with you. I'm chasing the ceiling.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Okay, so who do we have here? So we already talked about that. Let's move on to 21 wide receivers 21 through 30. And we'll kind of speed up a little bit because we're a little bit short on time, but that's okay. I have DJ Moore at 21, and obviously we're looking. We have DJ Moore, in the 20s two weeks in a row, here, which might be a little bit low. But I don't know if I can start him over the guys previously mentioned. Would you start him over Julio?
I would personally.
Yeah, I can see that.
I just told you why I didn't want to start Julio. But yeah, I would start DJ Moore pretty easily, especially with the Giants. The Giants, they're an interesting team. I think that's a good matchup for DJ Moore. Baker Mayfield's going to have another week, kind of got the butterflies out. Now it's go time. You got a good matchup against the Giants. I think that DJ Moore could show up here big, but
Yeah,
I said that last week too.
no.
So
No, I see it. And hopefully his target share bounces back to being number one as opposed to Robbie Anderson.
right.
For everyone who does have DJ Moore, I have Terry McLaurin at number 22. Allen Robinson, I moved him down a bit. He should still be in lineups. He's at number 23. I think he has a good matchup this week. Atlanta didn't really do well against New Orleans wide receivers last week. They gave up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers against New Orleans, and they were not good on the perimeter either. I think they gave up the ninth most points to fantasy to those Saints wide receivers on the perimeter last week, and Michael Thomas has a lot to do with that.
Right.
But I had Jalen Waddle number 24, Deontay at 25, Gabriel Davis at 26, Elijah Moore 27. New entry into the top 60, Curtis Samuel at number 28, Jerry Jeudy at 29, and Christian Kirk at 30.
Yeah,
Any of these
Gabriel
stand out to you?
Davis. Yeah, Gabriel Davis. I feel like we're just going to keep ranking him here at the high end wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
And, he catches a touchdown, suddenly he's wide receiver 1. That's
right.
He has so many different outcomes, I think it's hilarious because we're just going to keep ranking him in this same range.
And I think so.
I think that's appropriate, but I also think that he could start floating up towards the higher end 20s, maybe even low teens. No, low teens as in like 18, 19, that kind of thing. He could kind of move up, I think, because I'm a big Gabriel Davis guy.
I think so. I think it can move up, but his target share is going to have to go up. That's the only thing. His target share was under 20%. It was 18%. I'm sorry, no, it wasn't even at 18. It was at 16% last week. 5 targets. He got that deep ball that definitely helped him, and then the touchdown definitely helped him. So he that's how he's going to score a lot of his fantasy points. But just keep in mind that might be who he is. But we'll see. Hopefully that target share kind of increases as we go on, and then if that does, then we'll definitely move him up to like more of a solid wide receiver 2 instead of a low end wide receiver 2.
That's kind of how I look at it. I think it's funny because we keep begging him. He's like, oh, his target share isn't there, but the targets that he does get, they're so high quality. They're like end zone targets. They're red zone targets. They're deep.
It's kind of like Adam Thielen, right?
Yeah.
Like Adam Thielen is like he might not get the target share, but he's one of those guys that Kirk Cousins looks for in the end zone every single game.
Right. They're such high quality targets, and they're from Josh Allen of all quarterbacks. So it's like, you hate to rank him this low. I think we might get some flack. I might give some flack for this, but I think that he doesn't. Maybe he drops a deep pass, drops a touchdown, and suddenly you're staring at 7 or 8 points a week.
It's hard to keep him out of your lineup though, because he is the number 2 wide receiver for Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm not putting him out of my lineup ever unless he's injured.
Are you starting him over Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, Allen Robinson?
I think over Robinson and Johnson, maybe not Waddle.
Right.
We'll see. But Gabriel Davis, big fan. I wouldn't ever start him. I wouldn't ever not start him because, like, if you're not starting him at wide receiver 1 or 2 or 3, depending on your league, you're putting him in your flex. I would put him at flex.
Yep, I hear you there. All right, let's move on to tight ends real quick. I obviously have Travis Kelce at number 1. He didn't have the best game in the world, but it is what it is. You're going to start him at wide receiver 1, regardless.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have Mark Andrews at number 2, Kyle Pitts at number 3. Mark Andrews, by the way, had an amazing day in terms of utilization. He didn't have like the best day in the stat sheet. However, if you looked at what he did, and I'll pull it up right now, Mark Andrews 91% route participation rate, which was much higher than Rashad Bateman. By the way, I have Rashad Bateman a little bit low this week because he'll be matched up with Xavier Howard, and on top of that, he didn't run a route on like 3/4 of the dropbacks, which is weird for a number 1 wide receiver, especially on a low volume passing offense. But Mark Andrews though, 91%, 25% target share, 7 targets. It's going to look pretty good for him, honestly. And that's legit, and that's why I moved him back to number 2. Then you have Kyle Pitts, and then I have Darren Waller at number 4, followed by Dallas Goedert, Dalton Schultz, T.J. Hawkinson, Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth. And I did have Gerald Everett at 10, so that worked out.
Yeah.
And all these rankings are done before Thursday Night Football, obviously, because I wouldn't have Juju where he was.
Definitely, yeah.
But I think there's a chance Goddard, overtakes Waller at some point. I think it's possible. And we talked about this the other day. I'm
Yeah.
just a big fan of him and his talent. We'll see how these two do over the next couple games. But what do you think of Dalton Schultz? He has to see some volume from Cooper Rush, right? Like he
Yeah.
ran a route on 93% of dropbacks last week, which is ridiculous for a tight end.
Yeah, no, I like Dalton Schultz, and it's not just because I'm a Cowboys fan. He's a quarterback-friendly tight end. It's really weird because he's much younger than Jason Witten, but he kind of reminds me of Jason Witten because he just catches it and sits down. He's not going to do much for you after the catch, but he'll catch an intermediate route, a 13-yard pass, like 5 times in a game, and he'll get you 10, 11 points easy. And if it just happens to get a touchdown, you have the upside to be a really pretty good tight end. And I think 6 is a good spot for him because he has a floor that's consistent and slight upside. It's not obviously not Dallas Goedert upside or Darren Waller, but it's definitely better than TJ Hawkinson, that kind of thing. TJ Hawkinson has the upside, but not much floor. So
I hear that.
That's he's the middle ground between Goddard and Hawkinson.
So Fryermuth, he got an upgrade into the top 10, right?
Yeah.
Because he ran a route on 75% of dropbacks. He got 9 targets last week. Very, very solid usage. And he's a bit underrated right now. Nice little cheap buy if you need a tight end. And if you look at the weighted opportunity from week 1 among all tight ends, guess who was number 1?
Pat Freiermuth.
Pat Freiermuth, man. The combination of target share and air yards was the best of any tight end in week 1, 80% route participation. So if this continues, you're looking at an every week tight end 1. Potential breakout candidate here, despite him being on that, not so great Steelers offense. It can happen still.
Yeah, definitely. And then, just one thing, you mentioned Dallas Goedert possibly overtaking Darren Waller. I think that's absolutely in the cards because Darren Waller's contending with Mr. Devontae Adams. And, Devontae Adams is going to have a massive target share. And Darren Waller used to be the guy that, we'd say we'd peg to demand target share, get those targets. And now he's kind of, second in command when it comes to that. So, yeah, I don't want to say Darren Waller's ranked high, but I think he could easily be overtaken by Dallas Goedert, or even depending on how Cooper Rush plays, Dalton Schultz in terms of just week to week value, because Darren Waller, he was actually pretty inconsistent last year.
Yeah, and he was, he did have that injury that he was kind of dealing with the entire year. You were hoping that it could change this year, and I think it can. I don't know if Devontae Adams is going to get close to 50% target share every week. It could be more around 30% in most weeks. So Darren Waller could get his. There's still some room for that. Also, Renfro was kind of locked up, in that game. So things can change a little bit, and we'll see how that works out. But good for Devontae, and we'll see what happens, with Darren Waller. But I do want to, he's obviously going to be in my lineup. All these guys are, the guys in the top 5, top 6, top 7, they're going to be in your lineup for sure.
Yeah.
I have Albert O at number 11. His usage was solid. We talked about this on Tuesday. I think he's a low end 10 and 1 right now. Dawson Knox at 12. We need more targets from him. For him, David and Njoku too. He was terrible last week, but the last time that Njoku had this type of route participation, which is pretty good. It is what we expected. He did get close to full route participation, but he needs more targets. The last time he did have the route participation, several years ago, he did finish as a tight end 1, so he can do it again. He just needs to bounce back and get some targets on the routes that he is running.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people had questions about him. Also, Hunter Henry, I have him at number 14 ahead of Cole Kmet here. He ran a route on 85% of dropbacks last week. Only 2 targets, but something to pay attention to. We saw what he did in the red zone last year. And New England's offense didn't look good last week. So, if they bounce back a little bit, they do a little bit better. We know that, Hunter Henry was being looked for in the red zone a ton. The problem that I had with Hunter Henry last year was that he didn't have the route participation. He was running around 60%. But he was looked for in the end zone. So it was really hard to figure out how to rank him. But if he's going to run like this, and I think they ran a lot of 12 personnel in this game, but if he's going to do something like this, if he continues this, then he could be a potential, every week 10 and 1. But obviously 1 week sample size, we'll see how that continues.
Yeah. He's a sleeper for me. I wouldn't call him an every week tight end 1, but
No, it could happen. He's definitely not that right now.
Right.
But if this type of usage continues and he starts getting the targets on those routes, like it could happen. Cole Kmet, a little disappointing there. 70% of dropbacks. That's less than what we want. So not ideal on a bad offense. You want that to be up near 80%, 85% if you're gonna expect a good production out of that offense. I had Tyler Higbee at 16. I think he had like 10 targets last week.
Yeah.
So and he has a high route participation, but that could go down. I don't trust him that much. Juwan Johnson here at number 17. He ran a route on 80% of dropbacks, got 4 targets last week. He looks to be the primary receiving tight end in New Orleans. And we know the history that Jameis has had with tight ends in the past. So he's someone to keep an eye on in New Orleans. So, somebody that, really under the radar right now. Someone to pay attention to. I don't know if I'm putting him in my lineup, but just pay attention. We got Cameron Brate, with all these wide receiver injuries in Tampa. 75% route participation for him. If a bunch of these, if like Julio ends up being out too, like you might want to move Cameron Brate up a little bit, close to like that low end tight end 1 spot, like 12, 13, because he could potentially just get in a touchdown or 2 for you from Tom Brady.
Definitely.
And then we have Tyler Conklin to round it out at number 20. He's a little bit banged up. So just, if you're in like a weird tight end premium league where you're actually thinking about starting these guys, this is for you. But 81% route participation for him on the Jets. So that's legit. That's something, between him, if it depends, if the other tight ends get healthy. But for now, someone to pay attention to, let's see what each of these guys can get, in terms of opportunity, produce with the routes that they are getting. So I can't wait to see, which of these guys, like in this range, 11 through 20, can come through with their routes this week.
I think the best bet for me, I'd say, is Cole Kmet. Much better weather. I think we're going to see actual Kmet. I think that the Bears offense is going to be, I think they're probably going to be a negative script. I don't know if the Packers look bad, but I just don't anticipate the Packers being bad all season. If the Bears are playing from behind, that could easily become a high target, high volume situation for Cole Kmet. Of that, I'm just saying, of all of these guys here on this side of the list, obviously the top 10 you much rather have, but
yeah, I hope so. It was a little bit disappointing because I thought he would be more of a full-time player, and I'm hoping that this week that he runs a lot more routes than he did last week, because otherwise he needs to have a ridiculous target share on a per route basis for him to kind of come through to be somewhat startable. But yeah, that's all we had, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure that, if you haven't signed up for Underdog Fantasy yet, I think it's a great opportunity for you to do so. I'm sure a lot of people won some money last night playing Underdog Fantasy and choosing your picks and trying to multiply your money. So if you use code Upperhand, you get to double your deposit all the way up to $100. So the link is right here in the description. It's also in the podcast description. So make sure to check out Underdog. And and that'll do it for us, guys. We'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. We'll see you live on Sunday on Instagram between the hours of like 11 and until kickoff. Basically, that's when we'll be live on Instagram. So at Upperhand Fantasy, if you don't follow us there already. All right, Zach. Have a good weekend, man.
Yeah, you too.
We'll be back on Monday, guys. Take it easy. See ya.